There is a map that historians don't show you in school, not because it doesn't exist, but because it destroys everything they taught you about where civilization began. On this map, the Philippines is not a scattered archipelago of 7,000 islands. It is the eastern edge of a continent the size of nearly twice the land mass of India, a continent with rivers as wide as the Amazon, rainforests older than any civilization we know, and, possibly, cities. Buried, flooded, forgotten, it was called Sundaland. And somewhere between 20,000 and 8,000 years ago, the ocean swallowed it whole, not slowly, not gently, in some places, in days. Imagine your entire homeland, your rivers, your mountains, your people, gone underwater in days. Now imagine your grandchildren spending 10,000 years trying to remember what was lost. That memory is what we call mythology. And tonight, we go looking for what's underneath it. If this blew your mind, smash like and let's hit 500 likes. Drop your thoughts below and subscribe to Rahul History Vault for more hidden history. The world before the world. To understand Sundaland, you need to go back to a time that most people cannot even picture. 20,000 years ago, the Earth was in the grip of the last glacial maximum, the peak of the most recent ice age. Temperatures across the planet were roughly 6 degrees Celsius colder than today. That doesn't sound dramatic, but the effect on the oceans was catastrophic, in reverse. Because so much of the world's water was locked up in massive ice sheets, sheets that covered Canada, Northern Europe, and much of Asia, the global sea level was 120 meters lower than it is today. 120 meters. That is not a small number. That is taller than a 40-story building, of water that didn't exist yet. And what that missing water revealed was extraordinary. The shallow continental shelf of Southeast Asia, which today lies hidden under the Java Sea, the South China Sea, and the waters between Indonesia and the Philippines, was exposed. Dry land. A vast continuous landmass connecting what we now call Malaysia, Sumatra, Java, Borneo, stretching northeast toward Palawan, toward Mindanao, toward the heart of the Philippine archipelago. This was Sundaland. 1.8 million square kilometers of habitable land, laced with rivers, blanketed in ancient rainforest, home to megafauna, giant animals that no longer exist anywhere on Earth, and home, scientists now confirm, to human beings, for hundreds of thousands of years. The land that Filipinos and Indonesians fight to preserve today was once a single unbroken world, and the people who lived there were one people. The first Filipinos walked here. Here is where the story becomes deeply personal, especially if you are Filipino, because the question of where the first Filipinos came from has been debated, distorted, and deliberately simplified for centuries. Colonial historians wanted a simple answer, a clean narrative, migrations from Taiwan, a wave of Austronesian settlers, done, but the DNA doesn't cooperate with simple answers. Modern genetic studies, including research published in the journal Science, have found that Filipino DNA, particularly among indigenous groups like the Aita, the Agta, and the Batak, carries genetic signatures that trace back not just to Taiwan migrations, but to populations that have been in Southeast Asia for 50,000 to 70,000 years. 50 to 70,000 years. Long before Taiwan, long before any Austronesian expansion, long before any theory Western archaeology has fully accepted. These ancient lineages, sometimes called the Australo-Melanesian signature, were already in place when Sundaland existed. They were Sundaland people, and when the continent drowned beneath them, when the seas rose and the land broke into islands, their descendants became what we now call the indigenous peoples of the Philippines. They didn't migrate to the Philippines. They were left behind on the high ground when the water rose. Think about that. The islands of the Philippines are not where these people arrived. The islands of the Philippines are what remained of the world they already lived in. The mountains of Luzon, of Mindanao, of Palawan. These are the peaks of Sundaland, the parts the ocean couldn't swallow. The hidden city, Gunung Padang. Now the archaeological twist, because this story does not stay comfortably in the realm of theory. There is a physical site, a real dug-up, measured, carbon-dated, highly controversial site that suggests Sundaland may not have just been populated. It may have been civilized. Gunung Padang, West Java, Indonesia. On the surface, it looks like a stepped stone platform, an ancient megalithic site. Indonesian historians had long classified it as a relatively recent archaeological site, perhaps 2,000 to 3,000 years old. But in 2012, an Indonesian government-backed research team, led by geologist Dr. Danny Hilman Natawidjaya, began drilling and scanning beneath the surface. What they found beneath the visible stone layer stunned them. Layer after layer of construction, going down. The upper visible structure, around 3,500 years old. The layer beneath that, 7,000 to 8,000 years old. The layer beneath that, 9,000 to 12,000 years old. And at the deepest core, carbon dating returned results suggesting human activity as far back as 25,000 to 27,000 years ago. 25,000 years ago. That predates the pyramids of Egypt by 20,000 years. It predates Stonehenge by 20,000 years. It predates every known human civilization by a margin that is almost incomprehensible. If Dr. Natawidjaya's findings are verified, and that verification is still fiercely debated, Gunung Padang would be the oldest known structure built by human hands on planet Earth. Not in Egypt, not in Mesopotamia, not in China, in Southeast Asia, in the heartland of what was once Sundaland. Now, I want to be clear, this is contested science. Many mainstream archaeologists have pushed back hard on these dating claims, but the core question Gunung Padang raises cannot be dismissed. What was being built in this region 10,000, 15,000, 25,000 years ago? And how much of it is now sitting 40 to 120 meters underwater? When the ocean rose, here is the part of the Sundaland story that most people don't fully grasp, the speed of what happened. The standard model tells us that sea levels rose gradually over thousands of years as the Ice Age ended. And broadly, that is true. But within that gradual rise, there were events. Scientists have identified at least 3 major meltwater pulses, sudden catastrophic injections of glacial meltwater into the global ocean. Meltwater Pulse 1A, approximately 14,600 years ago, saw global sea levels rise by an estimated 16 to 25 meters in just a few centuries. Think about what that means for a flat, low-lying coastal plain. A rise of even 5 meters in a century means that river deltas, the most populated areas of any ancient civilization, are drowning in a single human lifetime. A rise of 16 to 25 meters means entire coastal regions, hundreds of kilometers of inhabited land, going underwater within living memory. not mythology, memory. And across Indonesia and the Philippines, the folklore says exactly that. The Tagalog legend of Batala and the primordial flood. The Visayan stories of a great deluge that destroyed the first world. The Javanese, Balinese, and Batak flood narratives. Every culture, every island, every language group. The same story. A great world that existed before. A catastrophic flood. Survivors who climbed to high ground. Scientists call this myth, but more and more researchers are asking a different question. What if it's testimony? Proof under the sea, the Madura Strait. Is there physical evidence, not just theories, not just legends, not just controversial dating at a single Indonesian site? Real, underwater, dug-up proof? The answer, increasingly, is yes. The Madura Strait, the narrow body of water between the island of Java and the island of Madura in Indonesia, sits above what was once solid Sundaland territory. In recent years, underwater archaeological surveys in this region have recovered something remarkable. Stone tools, carved bones, evidence of systematic butchering of large animals, found in sediment layers 40 to 60 meters below the current ocean surface, not washed there, not dropped accidentally, deposited there when that ocean floor was dry land, when people walked on it, worked on it, lived on it. Similar evidence has been found off the coast of Palawan, Philippines, ancient shorelines, submerged river systems, and archaeological material that points to human habitation in areas now completely underwater. The Palawan Passage, the ancient river system that once connected Sundaland's interior to what is now the Philippine archipelago, is visible today in satellite bathymetric maps. You can literally see the old riverbed, traced across the ocean floor, a river that hasn't flowed in 10,000 years. And in 2023, new sonar mapping surveys off the coast of Borneo revealed what researchers described as the outline of ancient river deltas, the kind of flat, fertile, heavily populated zones where early civilizations almost always develop. These delta plains are now sitting under 80 to 100 meters of ocean water. Whatever was built there, whatever was planted, traded, remembered, is gone, but the shape of it remains. Waiting. The Atlantis question. I have to address the theory that has made Sundaland controversial in mainstream academic circles, because ignoring it would be dishonest. Author and researcher Graham Hancock, who has spent decades studying evidence of pre-Ice Age civilizations, has proposed that Sundaland itself may be the real-world location behind the legend of Atlantis, not the Mediterranean, not the Atlantic Ocean, not Antarctica. Southeast Asia, flooded, precisely at the end of the last Ice Age, exactly as the Plato account describes, a powerful civilization swallowed by the sea. Now, Atlantis is a word that makes many scientists immediately close their minds. And I understand why. The theory has attracted a lot of people with no scientific credibility making wild claims. But here is what's interesting. The specific geological events Hancock describes, rapid sea level rise, the drowning of a continental shelf, the survival of a technically sophisticated people who dispersed and influenced other cultures. These are no longer fringe claims. They are documented in peer-reviewed oceanographic literature. The question isn't whether Sundaland drowned. It did. That is settled science. The question is what was on it when it went under. And that, honestly, we do not fully know. What we do know is this. The civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley all appear, seemingly fully formed, around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Fully formed. With agriculture, writing systems, monumental architecture, all apparently emerging very quickly. Some researchers have wondered, did they receive knowledge, ideas, techniques, seeds, navigation skills from people who came before them? From people who escaped a drowning world? I am not telling you the answer is yes. I am telling you the question is legitimate.